One question I've always wondered for the two of you is where did you come up and how did you come up with the name of the company, SagePresence? Can you help us define what Sage is and what does SagePresence? What is SagePresence?
Let me take the high concept on this, which is less how we came up with it, but more what it means to us. Essentially, we're different versions of stage presence. That's usually what we're trying to bring, which is some combination of what we knew and learned as filmmakers working with actors and writers, and what you face as business professionals. And so the end result is that Sage Presence is our trademarked way of capturing that idea of stage presence wherever you need it.
I've got kind of a long-standing relationship with this whole concept. When I was young, I was extremely self-conscious, extremely shy, extremely introverted, and I was a huge fan of TV and movies. And I'd watch talk shows, and I was just so impressed by actors who could come out and sit and chat with somebody in front of, a million folks and just be so incredibly comfortable and confident. And I was like, how come they can do that? And yet with me, when I'm sitting and talking with one person outside my family, my face turns red and I just feel absolutely miserable. And at some point, I think it was Jodie Foster. I saw an interview with Jodie Foster, and she was talking about learning skills that she thought everybody should know. And I was like, yes, absolutely. Everybody should know this stuff. It's so unfair. How come only actors can learn this stuff? And then years later, Dean and I started this acting workshop, and we were working with actors, and somewhere in my brain, I was like, hey, this is really cool. I'm actually teaching this stuff that I should have learned years ago. And I kind of forced myself to practice what we were teaching, and things got better. I got more comfortable talking to folks. And this whole process for me has been a real transformation for me. And, so I've been in on this for 20 years now, and I still catch myself with not the kind of presence that I want. But kind of the nice thing about where I am now with it is I'm okay with catching myself with it. Before, I would kind of shame myself and send myself into this downward spiral. Now, it's never perfect, but it's better. And that's the important thing.
That with actors, and we worked with that with all sorts of different types of professionals. And I want to make sure Pete gets credit for, he's the one who actually coined the name. We were doing a branding activity with a consultant, and it was like a 4-hour process, and we ended up with these 4 words that captured our brand. And one was strength, and one was growth, and one was empowerment, and another one was authenticity. And Pete suddenly said, hey, that spells sage. And somehow in the next 5 minutes, the sage presence spin on stage presence emerged. But strength, authenticity, growth, and empowerment in those letters order is what is underneath the hood of our brand.
So the last question for this week's segment on presence, I think ultimately is, if each of you could give me your number one tip on how to help people reconnect with their personal presence. Dean, why don't you start us off?
Well, I think that, to my surprise, joy is probably one of the number one ingredients of presence. And there's a certain amount of charisma that comes from facing tough issues and big challenges. And the issues that our work and our experience come together to help us deliver through, combined with enjoying that challenge and the struggle and the fascinating problems that you have to work with. And when I talk to people outside of the pressure, they have presence mostly when they're talking about what they love about their job. And they're not usually talking about happy things. They're talking about solving problems and making a difference, and they light up. And if you can bring an ingredient of that emotional positiveness into the serious subject, you end up with one part dead serious, one part playful. And so introducing joy and bringing it into the experience is a massive impact on presence.
I love that answer, Dean. So just a week ago, I was doing some coaching with a client who suffered from the fact that English was his second language, super self-conscious about coming across not professional or not educated or something like that. And whenever I heard him, I was like, boy, this is a very smart dude. And this is somebody who like chose his words carefully. And when he spoke, they landed on me like, wow, these are very well designed sentences. It really feels like every single word is the product of substantial intelligence. So when I told him that, it really shifted how he saw himself. It gave him permission to take the time that he normally felt like was a problem to create a sentence. And just in that little moment of deciding it's not only okay, but a good thing to do that, his whole presence brightened up. And it's really exactly, it's a version of what you're talking about, Dean. It's like joy. It's the next level above acceptance. It's like a happiness that what's going on for me right now is going on for me right now. It's not just acceptance. It's like, oh, cool. This is a good situation that I'm in right now.
Now, I don't know if this is the guy that you're talking about, but I remember a man who fits that description, who went from saying he could get through a presentation by looking at the clock and saying, okay, I only have 10 minutes more of this, to getting to the end of his presentation and saying, I wish I could just have 10 minutes more. And that was a really cool sign of progress for that individual. But we've seen that kind of pattern a lot, and engaging and embracing presence can really take you to a better experience of your life's work.
Well, thank you, Dean and Pete. It was great to get your insight on presence this week. Please join us again next week as we dive deeper into the thoughts, conversations, and important elements of Sage Presence.